No problem.
Okay, it is 7:02 on May 3rd, and this is the posted meeting of the trustees of the Wellfleet Affordable Housing Trust. The meeting is being conducted via Zoom video conferencing in accordance with the temporary suspension and enhancement to open meeting law requirements by Governor Baker. Instructions for Zoom video conference, including links, can be found on the agenda. Meeting will be recorded by the town. Anyone else desiring to record the meeting may do so only after notifying the chair and may not interfere with the conduct of the meeting in so doing. Jim notified me yesterday that he will not be joining us, so this is our full complement for tonight. Announcements from the public or anyone else? Okay, so let's proceed then to just status report on housing related activities. I have one, and I see there was a 95 Lawrence Road Task Force meeting last Thursday, which I was not able to attend, so I don't know what happened there. So if somebody can bring us up to date on that.
Yes, we are full steam ahead trying to settle a few pieces of the RFP and the ground lease and the LDA to actually send it in to the Central Register this Thursday for publication in the Central Register next Wednesday. I'm hoping that's going to work. Right, Gary?
I am hoping as well. I must say, we've had 2 meetings with KP Law, one with Laura Schufeld, and several of them with our new Assistant Town Administrator. And I think everyone has really been moving in the same direction. That we have been marching to the same drummer to get this finally out with a response date of August 1st. So we hope to be in selection mode late summer to choose a developer.
Excellent. That's really, really wonderful news. Gary, Elaine, myself, and Susan
Spear.
Spear, thank you, met last Wednesday with Sherry Goring. Oh, my goodness. Ms. Aldana from the CDC, whose first name escapes me at the moment, and also another individual from Mass Housing Partnership to begin the scoping of that technical assistance grant. So we've laid out some preliminary steps, and I think we will meet next in a couple of weeks. I don't know if Gary or Elaine, you want to add anything to that?
No, it's Andrea is her first name.
Yes.
And the other person is someone who is still with MHP, but actually has taken another position with a developer.
Katie Bossy, is it?
That's correct.
Yeah.
I guess, the charge was to create a list of all the strategies and all the tasks that all our different groups do in a Google Doc. And I mean, at some point, I guess we'd like to make sure everybody had a way to contribute to that.
Yeah, and the deadline for completing that is next Monday, the 10th. I don't know whether there's a good way to engage the other 3 of you at this moment on that.
Yeah,
But
Are you thinking that we have something to add that's not on there?
sure, because it was
Well,
not just strategies and tasks, but aspirational too.
And ultimately, we will get more people under the tent. This is more to try and develop a roadmap for the process than actually doing the process, at least as I understand what we're doing.
Right.
I'm happy to lay eyes on it, but I feel pretty confident that my aspirations will have been covered by those of you who hold the same values of affordable housing. So I'm not sure that my bandwidth right now is all that creative. So for what that's worth.
Okay. Well, shall we just leave that for the time being then? The next thing I have is a new agenda item.
Wait,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Harry.
ahead.
I'd like to get Sharon. We have two, on the partnership, we have two important things coming up. One is that the planning board will be hearing the ADU bylaw that we brought to the select board. And when is that, Sharon?
This Wednesday, and then again on the 19th.
So if you can come and support it, that would be super. We are still waiting to really get the feedback from the select board, from the planning board. But I think it's more around the permitting process and COA and whether it triggers a septic review or not.
Mhm.
COA?
The certificate of occupancy.
Oh, okay. The COO.
Or more commonly just CO.
Okay.
Can we ask you this question, Harry, actually?
Sure.
If there is a by right permit and
Mhm.
someone wants to add an ADU onto their property, they have sufficient land to support the extra bedrooms.
Mhm.
Do they have to redo their septic system? for that
Well,
purpose?
Depends.
Septic system has to be inspected. It has to be functioning. It has to be a Title V septic system that has a design capacity sufficient to support that number of bedrooms. And that's pretty much it. Typically, an inspection that's less than, 2-3 years old is okay.
2.
2, okay. Sharon?
Only that I spoke to Paul Fowler this morning,
Mhm.
and because I know that some of the planning board members, Dave Rowell especially, is kind of saying that, oh, this will throw everything up in the air. And so I spoke with Paul Fowler, and he said, well, there'll be some properties that won't be eligible, and there'll be some others that are, which is
Yeah.
what we've been thinking all along.
Mhm.
And I have a call in. He also said, really gets Hillary's bailiwick. And I have a call in for her, but I have not heard back from her yet.
She's
So
had,
I'm just trying to clarify all this.
yeah,
Right.
she's had knee surgery, I guess it is. So I'm not sure exactly how much time she is in the office.
No, well, he did say she was working remotely,
Mhm.
but that she typically got back pretty well, but she, I have no idea what's going on in her life and professional life. But I would like to hopefully hear from her before
Yeah.
the planning board meeting, just so I can kind of have that in my corner.
Yeah, but I think the short answer is that when you apply for a building permit, one of the criteria is, does the septic system support what you're proposing to do, build with the building permit? And if the answer is yes, you get to proceed. And if the answer is no, you don't get the building permit. And it's actually not any more complicated than that.
Well, so Dave
Mhm.
Rowell is saying, and I don't know I know him, I like him, he's a firebrand in his own way. But he's saying that because Title V considers the addition of a new dwelling unit to be new construction, which totally makes sense to me, but that like dispenses with all of your pre-existing non-conformances. So that's what I'm trying to get from Hillary. Because I don't understand why that would be. I understand, if your well and your septic are too close together, then yes, that won't be allowed, but I don't understand the rest of it. So I'm just trying to get clarification.
Yeah, I'm not sure you're the one who needs clarification.
Well, maybe not, but I'd like to have a leg to stand on when I'm at the planning board meeting.
Mhm.
Stand firm, Sharon.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, Bruce Spearhans has weighed in a little bit too. And in my conversations with the health agent, it really comes down to design flow and how many bedrooms it can support. And clearly, the definition of new construction is, well, it's split up into two sections, basically. It defines new construction as new buildings being built that require an occupancy permit. So that would be one thing. The second one, which mentions additional dwelling units, only refers back to buildings that were built prior to 1995 when Title V was created that have been partially destroyed, demolished, or are being rebuilt. And that's it. That's the only mention that's in there. So it's a reach to apply that to every single property, because I don't think that's what they intended when they said new construction. And really the issue is that it's the Board of Health's purview. It's not a zoning regulation.
Mhm.
And the Board of Health can apply waivers and variances, and they have to comply with Title V. But if it's not written into Title V, then they're the interpreters of Title V. They're the regulatory body.
That's exactly right. And that's why I would like to just actually myself talk to Hillary and hear it from her so that I can feel comfortable saying the same thing at the meeting.
Sure.
I mean, I do believe that that's true. I agree with that interpretation, but I'm getting from both sides and I want to just have clarity.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it'd be hard to say that if you have a walkout basement and you have a kitchenette in there and you add a stove, that suddenly your property becomes new construction. I mean, that's
Well, it's a new dwelling. It requires a certificate of occupancy.
sure. But if you already have occupancy in that building, like adding a stove creates the dwelling, but it's not a new building being constructed. I mean, the definition's pretty clear. There's two sections to it. I'm not going
But
to bring.
sometimes you do want to create a new building. So I just
Sure.
want to hear it from Hillary and
Yeah.
no, it's all good.
Yeah, yeah.
Good. I'm not worried.
Elaine, Sharon, Hillary has been very good about answering emails, even if she doesn't always answer the phone.
Okay,
voicemail.
try that too.
So if you can, craft an email with your questions,
Sure.
you might try that as well.
Yep.
And it
Yep.
wouldn't hurt to put it in an email and get it in writing.
Absolutely. You're right. You're right.
Mhm.
So I would phrase it as succinctly as possible so that when she responds back, you have exactly what you want in writing from her. She's
Right.
pretty clever though, and doesn't always respond that way when you're looking for that, but.
Well, the trick is that until this point, I haven't actually had the specificity to write the
Yeah.
question.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I feel like I do now. So we're moving forward.
I do have the question kind of laid out to present to town council also, if you want me to email you that
But I
shows.
would love that. That'd be great.
Yeah. And the thing that with the health agent, when I spoke with her, when I spoke with Hillary, she said, you know, every property is different. They all have different requirements and different variances and different square footage, and all those things play into what you can do with Title V. So there's no one size fits all
Of course.
application. So I think the question's really like, will these be, are there possibilities that these will be allowed in our current Title V? You know, and then,
Right.
you know, and then it really comes down to like weighing each application anyways, you know, but
Well, so if you listen to Dave Rao, there are almost no properties in Wellfleet that would be eligible. And I don't agree with that, but I would like to have, you know, just the solid substantiation that, yeah, some are not, and many will be.
Well, and if that's what Dave's feeling is, then he shouldn't have such a big bark about it because it's not going to really affect much. So,
No harm, no foul.
Right.
my, and I'm a little bit unclear exactly what it is we're asking Hillary, but in my experience in selling properties and working with Hillary, what determines how many bedrooms a house can be sold for is what was permitted for the Title V, what was put in the ground, and what is in the house. So to me, the first two factors likely apply here, and now we can add to the house with the ADU.
Right. Okay.
That would be my impression of what we're asking for, yes?
Mhm.
Yeah, and it certainly shouldn't be lost on David or anybody else that if you have a 4-bedroom house, for example, and a 4-bedroom septic system, and want to separate off one of those bedrooms as an ADU, probably going to be okay with the current septic system as long as it's functioning and has the design capacity. You know, you don't necessarily, ADU doesn't necessarily mean a new structure and a new bedroom, although it certainly can, and in many cases.
Well, we want to make sure that it can, that
Yes.
both would be allowable.
yeah. Well, even if your property had to come up, like say you had an acre, you're allowed 4 bedrooms on that acre, and you had a 3-bedroom house, you could certainly, and you had a 4-bedroom septic, you could certainly build a new building and still be in compliance with your 4th bedroom without upgrading your septic system. So that's 100% guaranteed. You'd have no variance in that situation. And so there are properties like that already. And then there's properties where, and then there's properties where there's variances, and the situation of the new construction, basically, if you have an existing structure, right? So that's meant as being like for primary dwellings, right? So principal dwellings. So your new construction is basically a principal dwelling. Everything else you build on your property as an accessory building doesn't need an occupancy permit to be built. And it's clear in the definition that new construction is applied to new construction of new buildings which require an occupancy permit. So if you have a structure or you build a structure that's an accessory building, that building didn't require an occupancy permit to be built, and then the structure exists. So whether that's, you know, a workaround or just would apply to buildings that are like garages or something like that, that are already existing, converting those, then you require the occupancy permit, but the building's already there, if that makes sense.
The difference here, though, is we're not just looking for a bedroom. The bedroom part of it, I don't think requires the occupancy permit and is by right.
Sure.
based on, what your septic is. It's the fact that we want a second family unit to be able to live there and have a kitchen. The kitchen is the real issue. As long as the septic allows the number of bedrooms, and
It's a dwelling.
correct.
Sure.
But it's
And-
always the kitchen when we're selling them. You can have, 3 bedrooms in the house, 1 bedroom above the garage. Clearly, it's living separately and it's fine as long as you don't have a stove in that second above the garage. As long as there's no stove there, the town allows it. Once we have a stove in both places, then it's a problem and then it's illegal.
Yeah, and that's because the definition of a dwelling unit requires cooking facilities, sanitary facilities, and sleeping facilities. And you can have a 5-bedroom house with 5 bathrooms, so the number of sanitary facilities is never an issue. It's the cooking facilities.
Right.
We
Exactly.
also have been allowed to have like counter cooktop,
The hot plate and the beer fridge and the microwave.
well,
yeah.
but not like an actual, I don't even know what to call it other than countertop cooktop that is actually part of the counter that you turn on, but you can't have an oven. That's how it's been in the past.
Okay.
So
Well, that's even better.
I believe the French have been dealing with that for a long time.
Well, I can tell you that Title V is pretty explicit in that it considers design flow for multifamily units and single-family dwellings exactly the same. And that's
Yep.
explicit in Title V. And
Yep.
so the idea that it would change your design flow to add a stove, it doesn't mention kitchens once in Title V. Kitchens are not an issue. That's a zoning issue.
right.
And
That's a
Title
town-
V is not a zoning issue.
Mm-mm.
It's a Board of Health issue. It's a regulation,
Mhm.
and it has nothing to do with zoning or kitchens. It's what you define as a multifamily or single family, and either way, it's the same design flow requirements. They don't
Yep.
change. So,
The other question that I would have, and maybe you guys who are much further ahead on this than, I really understand, there are a number of Title V septics, especially in Great Woods Field, where Jerry Parent put in oversized septics based on the fact that it wasn't that much more expensive, even though the land doesn't support them now. So let's say it's a 4-bedroom house, but in the ground is a 5-bedroom Title V. I would be curious whether we would allow an extra bedroom just because the Title V is built for that size.
That's a
I
question.
think it,
for sure.
I think it would be a great thing to pursue in the future.
Hmm.
I'm not sure that right now we're ready for it, but I agree. That's a good question.
that's
Okay.
one of those things that's specific to the property.
Mhm.
But I think that there have been houses built out here that are 5 or 6 bedrooms on half-acre lots in the recent past, with those old septic systems that had been approved.
Could
Because
be.
there's a septic and a well and a approved building plan on all those properties. That's how they did it. So the whole thing, I live in that neighborhood for full disclosure, but I think the situation, because the septic and the well and the site plan were developed and approved for that many dwellings, then the variances exist. But I don't know. I've been trying to get a clear answer exactly on how that goes, but I know that there's been at least one house built in the last, I would say 6 or 7 years that is a 5-bedroom on a half-acre.
I think clear answers are hard to come by. And, I feel like at some point, perhaps not at the moment, because I don't think I have the bandwidth, but I think it would be useful to have, a variety of these different committees in the room talking together at the
Mhm.
same time. Like,
Well, depending on when we are asking for the information depending on who the party is. So if the building inspector has changed, the interpretation may change. So I would suggest we just get things moving forward as best we can and then deal with all the nitty gritties to
Oh,
Mike's
no,
point
yeah.
as they come up.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay, we all set with this. Is there anything else under status?
I just want to mention that we are working on a summer of fun. Various folks are doing various things, but including getting housing displays in the galleries, having a story slam at Pres Hall, doing various outreach types of things to kind of bring the consciousness, not so much fundraising, but consciousness about the current situation in Wellfleet and what people can do about it.
And
That's awesome.
Yeah.
who's working on that, Gary? Is that LHP or is that?
Sharon is doing quite a bit of it. Susan Spear is doing this story slam. If I'm correct, Sharon, you want to speak to what else is happening?
Well, we're still in the coordination phase, but Ann Suggs is working with a variety of galleries. We're trying to have something for the 8 weeks between, 8 and 9 weeks between July and August, where there's something happening kind of all the time. So that each of those weeks, there'd be a gallery that has some sort of perhaps housing related thing, but also sharing our brochures and some buttons that I'm crafting and stuff like that. And that Lee Witherspoon has agreed to coordinate yoga instructors for this Oming for Home, where the yoga instructors would donate the proceeds from a class in that week. And where the story slam that Susan is coordinating, we may try to get a slideshow going for on the walls of Pres Hall in the evening. Jason and Elizabeth Salen have offered to do some raw bars. And so I'm honing the plans as we speak, and we will need some funding for brochures and perhaps some buttons. And also, we're hoping to have a nice display in the news dealer window.
And we've had some conversation with SPAT about doing something around the shellfishermen. So it's coming together, but we're still some time away.
That's all sounds great. As just another off joint, I had a conversation with Emma Doyle, who does sales for the Provincetown Independent, in talking about just affordable housing, and suggested that the paper continue with what the CDP had been doing with their advertising, which I know they're continuing, of speaking of who affordable housing is for and introducing those people to the community in their ads. And I had suggested to Emma and then to Teresa and Ed that they kind of do features on who our community is, who are
Great,
community members.
That's excellent.
fabulous.
So hopefully we can get that going, and maybe it'll correspond in terms of timing.
CDP had a nice campaign a few years back when we were gearing up for Lawrence Road, and where they showcased just on posters several different local people, someone who worked at Outer Cape Health, someone who's an EMT, and the byline was, we can't afford to lose the people who can't afford to live here.
And
And I
that's what
think
they're
that's
continuing
great.
with.
Byline.
And just to go along with that, if I might report that the Housing Angels tax insert has produced 39 donations so far, totaling over
Yay.
$20,000.
Nice, very nice,
That's something.
very good.
Strangely,
Okay.
we got a bill from the collector. I don't remember if we, in the past, paid for that insert. Do you recall, Elaine?
I don't recall, but we're paying this time.
All right,
How much is that bill?
it's not a lot, $215.
Okay.
Good return on investment,
Yeah, I think
The-
our only
yeah.
obligation is to put it in the envelope.
right?
And once again, the money is great and the awareness building is huge.
Agreed.
Okay, anything else on status reports? Okay, continuing the donations discussion, Gary had contact from, I don't know if she's an accountant or what her role is.
I think she's the executor.
Okay, advising us of a bequest. And there was some, I guess the organization that holds the funds has us named as the beneficiary after the principal's death. And they were looking for some kind of a corporate vote. So I had a couple of conversations with the executor, and I said, let me talk to the agency that's actually holding the money and see what they need. And I talked to a gentleman there, and he basically said, just some kind of a document that shows that we exist and we're allowed to do this. So what I've done, putting aside the fact that there is a statute, a section in chapter 44 that allows any municipal department to accept gifts of money. So I don't think we need to do this at all. I put together a kind of prototype vote that's formatted the way most corporate votes are done for evidencing a corporation's authority to do something. And I also spoke to the town clerk and asked her if she could put together a certificate of incumbency saying, these 7 individuals are the trustees of the Affordable Housing Trust. And Jennifer has agreed to do that. So I've got this document that I would like to discuss. And okay, let me share my screen here so you can take a look at it, because I've fiddled with it a little bit since I sent it out. So I hope you can all see this. And basically, all it says is it's got some verbiage that says, well, we are the Affordable Housing Trust, and this is what our provenance is, and that we've named 1 or more individuals as authorized to accept bequests and other gifts and to sign any documents that they determine as, necessary or convenient to effect that purpose. I would suggest that Gary, as the treasurer, might be the person who should be authorized, but we could certainly authorize more than 1 person. So something along the lines of this is up for consideration to try and address the bequest issue that we have in front of us right now. I don't know how much money's involved. And so that's what I know.
So they're looking for us to identify that whoever's receiving the money legitimately is on the trust.
Yeah, and they want to know that the Affordable Housing Trust is a real thing too.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and I did explain to the individual I spoke to that, we were an agency of the town of Wellfleet, and if he was looking for the corporate documents for the town of Wellfleet, it was incorporated in 1763, and I don't happen to have that handy at the moment. And he seemed to be fine with that. So,
Harry, if we were to vote on this, with the specifics of people's names in there, does that then mean moving forward, we have to keep updating this document?
it's it's pretty typical that when one is asked for, they want the current one anyway. But if we take the vote and say authorize, so I have blanks here, I would be inclined to put the office in here and say the treasurer or the
Yeah.
vice chair or the chair or some combination of, people be authorized to do this. And then, I've got a further line certifying that Gary is the treasurer. So if we were to put treasurer up here, that would work.
Mm-hmm.
But if we want to put more than a treasurer,
Could we authorize yourself, Harry, as chairman?
We could.
We're also signing it. Is that appropriate or not?
it's fine.
Okay,
I don't think it's going to be an issue.
so I would suggest at least 2 people.
So let me just
You
go.
vote treasurer twice,
Yes.
Harry.
Yes, I did that intentionally.
Oh, I see.
Okay. And then I just add another thing that says, and then, I'm the duly appointed and serving chair of the Board of Trustees to this certificate. And then I would, since we don't have a clerk, I would sign it myself. And I think that'll be okay. Because it'll be, we also have Jennifer's certification that Gary and I are real people and we're actually trustees.
Or we could always have Elaine sign it as,
She's the vice chair.
yeah, just so that it's a different name if you feel like there'd be any concern about it.
If it becomes an issue, we can always do that. I can never spell my own name because my left hand and right hand type at different speeds, so the letters get reversed.
At least you're using 2 hands.
Okay, close.
But no cigar.
Yeah,
There you
well,
go.
I think I'm okay. Okay, I think that this will satisfy the most persnickety person who's looking for a piece of paper for their file.
Harry, is it an individual attorney or is representative of some?
It's some guy at the customer service of this. It's kind of a fund that invests payroll deductions in a retirement account.
Mhm.
And the person has died, and they've named us as the secondary beneficiary. That's my
That's
understanding.
awesome.
Yeah. I got also, just FYI, I got a call from someone else wanting to know how to do a transfer from a self-directed IRA. People set up IRAs for charitable purposes and how to do a wire transfer to the town. So we'll see.
Nice.
And Miriam, I think, would be happy to provide that.
Right, I did direct them to Miriam.
And at some point when I have a moment, I can also furnish the statutory reference that allows town departments to accept gifts of money. There's a different rule for real property. So if somebody wants to give you a 69 Volvo, it's a different process.
That would be great to have, Harry, though, because through our info line that the CDP monitors, there are some requests like that coming in.
Okay.
If they were able to directly provide that information, that could be helpful as opposed to having to transfer it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll get that information to you folks and we can get it to the CDP too. Okay, does anybody have any thoughts on what I'm proposing to do here?
That's great.
Somebody want to offer this as a motion?
So moved.
Okay.
Second,
And Kathleen and Sharon. Is there any more discussion?
No,
Okay, let's do a roll call vote. Kathleen,
Aye.
Mike,
aye.
Elaine,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
chair votes aye. Did I miss anyone?
me, I,
No. Sharon? Yeah, aye. Okay, so 6 in favor, none opposed. So that takes care of that. Let me stop sharing that. Next, status of Affordable Housing Trust account balances to the trust. I think given the current state of the accounting of the accounting office within the town, this is not the most important thing on their radar screen right now. So we do not know what that balance is. So we are no further along than we were back in February or March. And until we get another accountant who's able to say what the balances are, I just don't see this happening in the immediate future. And frankly, given the amount of stress whoever becomes the accountant will be placed under to deal with the other issues, I'm not sure that I want to hector he or she on this issue until they've got other things under control, because the town cannot set a tax rate without an accountant or a financial officer able to make certain certifications. And that's, I think, more important than what our account balance happens to be. I think we do have donations, and I suspect that we can probably work off of those for small things, but I don't see the old housing trust balance being available to us in the immediate future.
Can it be accessed by whoever was in charge of the old housing trust?
I don't know. And the housing authority had signature authority over that account. So I don't know whether that still works or not.
Yes, we still pay bills.
Okay, well, that's good.
Well, at least I submit bills to be paid.
Okay.
what
well,
happens, what
go
happens
ahead.
if someone, the buy down person actually finds a house? Will we be able to transfer those funds?
Well, those are CPA funds, which
Yeah.
theoretically are held separately.
Okay,
And we have a substantial balance, even though we don't know exactly what it is. So I think the
Okay.
answer is yes, but I shouldn't be so cavalier about it. Harry,
Yep.
are they hiring a third party to serve as a temporary accountant?
I've had some discussions with the acting town administrator about that, but I don't know what steps he's taken since last Friday. But he and I agreed when I sat down with him last Thursday that that was probably the single most important thing he had to get done.
To
So,
circle back for a minute to the
Yep.
buy down situation, I think it would behoove whoever is dealing with that, Gary, if it's you, to get that squared away, because on the outside chance a property actually becomes available in that price range that that person can compete for, they're going to have to move expediently.
As a practical matter, the buy down money is paid at the time of closing. So we certainly can certify that we have the money
Perfect.
available for the completion, but the actual transfer of the money is months
Yeah,
away.
when they close.
Yes.
Okay.
and presumably if town meeting does happen in June and the town does vote the CPC's recommended transfer to the housing trust, there's another identifiable chunk of money that can be used for buy down, since that is a CPC project, right?
Yes.
Okay, so there's hope that we would be able to deliver on our promise there.
Harry or Michael, have they numbered the warrant items at this point? And do we have to vote to recommend the housing related items? When do you want
Um,
when do you want that vote?
Well, I think I can put that on the agenda for the next meeting, and since I'm in control of editing the warrant to some degree,
Excellent.
I can make sure that that actually gets in the warrant.
So for the other housing groups, Harry, if you could just tell us which ones you need the recommendation on.
Well, I think in the past, the policy's been to print any recommendations that are received from any board or committee. So if the Housing Authority and the LHP both want to recommend the ADU bylaw
Mhm.
or the Affordable Housing Trust bylaw, I think those are the two that we have that, those recommendations should go on the warrant.
Right, but like the wastewater for 95 Lawrence would be one
Yep.
we'd want.
Yep,
There are other CPC housing related ones.
yep.
So
Yeah,
when you
and-
have the numbers and when you need the recommendations, just let us know.
Well, yeah, if we have the recommendation by subject, because what'll happen is ultimately right now they have odd numbers like 3A and 4K and stuff like that. So ultimately they're going to be numbered sequentially, but it will be after all the other work is done. So by the time I'm able to tell you that it's Article 47, it will be too late to do anything to it.
All right, so we should do them generic, without numbers, and
Yeah.
we can do
That's how
that.
we've been placing them on the select board, is without the numbers,
Yeah.
and recommending them. But just to add to the conversation, it appears that our deadline is going to be somewhere around the 21st to close the warrant of May.
Sounds about right. Yes.
So we haven't got an actual deadline from the printer, but I think June 10th is when it has to be back in the hands of the town administrator's office to send out for town meeting.
Normally the printer will do that mailing for us. They have
Okay.
a bulk- they have a
Well, it has
bulk-
to be yeah. Okay.
But they still have to, we still have to do things 14 days before the meeting.
Okay, so
Right.
you want the recommendations by, just give us a date, Harry.
Well, can we have them by, say, Monday, the 17th, which I think is a holiday?
It's just tax day.
No, it's not a holiday. Memorial Day is later. So I would say, and I'm prepared to have this committee meet on the 17th to make its recommendations too.
So we have a housing authority meeting this Thursday. We could vote by topic. We could
Yep.
vote, or I could look at what's published right now and just use
Mhm.
it by topic.
Yep.
Okay.
And we have a LHP meeting on the 20th, so
That'll work.
shortly after that.
Yeah, that'll be fine, I'm sure.
Let's say the 20th then.
Yeah.
And we have a CPC meeting before that as well.
Mhm. So we've already talked about the Mass Housing Partnership Technical Assistance Grant. The Affordable Housing Trust bylaw is in the draft warrant, and it is the one we proposed. So that's okay. We could vote to recommend that since it's on the agenda.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you want to do that.
Why not?
Sure. Okay, so the motion would be to recommend approval of the Affordable Housing Trust bylaw.
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
It's Mike. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, Kathleen,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Lane,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Sharon,
Aye.
Chair votes aye, so that's 6 in favor and none opposed. Um, The short-term rental tax receipts to the trust, I think as a practical matter, that's just not going to be possible for FY '22 for the same reasons that we're having accounting issues. I think until that's sorted out, we will not know how much of the short-term rental tax is going to be committed to funding the operating budget. What's happened is normally we will spend some amount of free cash to fund some parts of the budget. And since we don't have a free cash certification right now, we can't use that source of funds for for budget items right now. So I think that as a practical matter, I just don't see the FY '21 or 20, or we're in 21 or 22 short-term rental tax being available in any, I don't know. What do you think, Mike?
Well, it depends. It depends because it's a policy matter. The budget is the budget's like an expression of what's expected to be taken in, where's money expected to go from. If at some point we certify free cash and we know that there's free cash available, that the select board, I would think, would have the opportunity to direct some money, earmark some money from that fund, even though it had been allocated. But I don't know, Harry, that would be more of a town administrator's.
Well, I think, I think as a policy statement, that would come from the select board. I think as a vote to actually implement that, that would come from the town meeting. So it's kind of two pieces. Do we still want to take the step of asking the select board that subject to availability that the short-term rental tax or 80% of it be committed to the trust?
I think that, does that, so if the select board earmarks the money, Harry, then the town administrator would implement that policy. But that would have to, my understanding is that that would have to be carried out year over year if it didn't go to town meeting for a vote, because it's an allocation of cash that's coming in basically the same way that local receipts come in, right? So the town administrator can move that money around in the general budget any way it wants, or,
Well, yeah, but there has to be an appropriation. You know, the general budget is a vote by the town meeting that we
Right.
want to spend $18 million on these things.
okay,
So, you know, the fact that it's, you know, that the receipts are there sitting in the general fund doesn't mean that I don't think means that the selectmen can allocate them to a particular purpose. I think that's an appropriating vote that requires town meeting action. I think that the select board can say, you know, this is the policy that we want to follow.
right.
And that's a leadership position they can adopt that will, you know, that, you know, perhaps will help lead the town meeting in the right direction.
So I guess the question is the practicality of not having certified free cash going into our budget, and the necessity to utilize the short-term rental tax funds kind of as a placeholder for free cash in a way, because if we had it certified, we may not have to do that.
Yeah.
But then it becomes impractical to ask to remove that money and allocate it, because if it's already allocated in the budget, I don't know, Harry.
But it's also true. Let us just say that the town uses those estimated receipts as part of funding its budget, which is what we're talking about.
Right.
The town could then go back in the fall or even next spring to transfer a corresponding amount of free cash. In other words, you know, if we've taken, say, $500,000 out of short-term rental receipts to fund the operating budget, instead of using free cash to do that, then the town meeting can always vote to use free cash to, you know, to fund the housing trust. But
Right,
I think they have to vote.
right,
They're the sole appropriating authority.
right.
I think
But
it's
the
all
question-
part of the same PR campaign also that we're making. I think we still need to have the policy and the protocol set or asked for.
Mhm.
And also feel like we are just too ingrained with the two of you on this board that other boards or groups would not have, and that somebody else could try to cut the line while we're being polite. And so I think we need to stay the path with it, even if there is no money to fund it yet.
And I know the wastewater people also have their eye on this fund, and I've spoken before the select board about that a couple weeks ago, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think like, I'm pretty clear now on, you know, I wasn't sure about, you know, allocating it from the budget if it just complicate things, to put it on this year's warrant, when there's not a, certified free cash right now. And that money's being right now, appropriated through the approval of this year's budget, would be appropriated into the general to fund, basically covering a deficit from not having certified free cash.
Yeah.
And then does it complicate the issue to have it on this year's warrant? But actually, I'm not sure. I think maybe Kathleen's right. And it should be moved to the select board, and then maybe it should be on the warrant. I really don't know. I mean, tactically, what's the best thing to do?
So should I ask that it be an agenda item for the next select board meeting?
Are you asking me?
Well, no, I'm asking the group collectively because it's their collective decision.
We have made the request before. Was
Yeah.
any action taken by the select board based upon that
No.
request?
We had a 45-minute discussion, but they didn't take a specific action.
And is there any follow-up information or anything needed from either the trust or other housing groups?
They didn't ask us for anything, as I recall. And
No,
I
they didn't.
didn't sense that there was any real hostility to the idea either.
Right. So what is it that select board would be waiting on, I guess is the question.
Well, I think that we left it as a select board taking no action, because there was some idea that there should be a broader discussion with wastewater and, you know, other groups.
Mhm.
But my sense of the situation was that, well, I don't want to preempt, you know, what the board would do, but my sense of the support for the request during that conversation, it seemed that if it had gone to a vote, to me, that it probably would have passed, you know, just
I
in
agree.
sort of reading the tea leaves in the conversation.
Right.
The select board may have voted to approve it had they taken a vote, or had we taken a vote at the time. But, you know, until there's a vote, I don't really want to
Yep. No, and
speak for anyone. I mean, I certainly don't want to speak for anyone, but that was my take on the conversation.
yes,
Harry, can you make it a warrant item that is subject to availability? And is it availability through free cash or through some other, how do you certify availability?
let's see if I can find a different way of saying this. Um, the town votes at its town meeting to spend money. And that money has to come from what we can collect through taxation, subject to Proposition 2.5 limits, what we can take from funds with existing balances, like the beach fund, and what we can reasonably anticipate in receipts, estimated receipts. And estimated receipts includes things like motor vehicle excise, meals tax, short-term rental tax, all of that stuff. So at some point, the town will say, in order to set a tax rate, we have to commit this much money from estimated receipts. And if part of that commitment is to support affordable housing, and if there are enough estimated receipts to do that, everything's fine. If there aren't, then it's not. And that's, I'm having trouble trying to find a way to structure what's kind of a squishy concept into like a sentence or two.
If it passes at town meeting, I mean, I feel like what we're saying is we want the select board to give their approval and then it's gonna go on the warrant. Is that what we're saying?
Well, that's the question, because I think I don't think that we will know by June 26th whether the town's going to have to use the short-term rental receipts to make the budget work. I
Okay.
suspect that we're not going to know.
So if it has to go before the town on the warrant, is it a one-time thing or it's an every year thing? Like I kind of thought what we had talked about in prior meetings was the precedent would be set that 80% of the short-term rental tax from here forward would go to affordable housing if it passed. Do I understand that correctly?
I think it might, I'm not sure I know the answer, Kathleen, but it could very well have to be something that's voted annually.
Ugh,
I just don't know.
I think we should find that out.
Mhm.
I agree with Kathleen that we should not necessarily take it off the table at this point. I understand it's a priority and availability issue. So we're not asking for funds be used for housing as opposed to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if there is availability, then we would like to pursue this discussion.
Mhm.
I just wonder if there's some way of saying, above a certain amount, or, if the short-term rental tax exceeds X amount, then that amount comes to housing.
We could certainly do that. I think the problem is we just don't know enough right now to know.
Yeah.
I'm sure to get a policy commitment from the select board that we can implement at such time it becomes fiscally possible to implement, than to try and to do something that's very specific and then find out that it's not possible, that the numbers just don't work. I don't know.
Yeah.
Plus, I feel like we need to be careful that we don't want to set a precedent where, I mean, the town needs to get its act together. And once we get our act together, accounting wise, then we want 80% of this money to come to affordable housing. And so we don't want to set a precedent that we'll take less than that on a regular basis.
I just want to be clear and clarify to anybody who's watching or listening to this meeting too, that what we're actually talking about here is a deficit that is not necessarily structural, but based on the fact that we can't certify the amount of free cash that we have. So we're not talking about money that doesn't exist. It's just uncertified. And so the the short-term rental tax is bridging that gap due to essentially accounting deficiencies. And so when that's cleared up, it's not that the town is in a bad financial standpoint. We're not fiscally unsound. We're taking in revenue and taking in local receipts, and that money goes into free cash and then it can't be appropriated until it's certified by the DOR. And so I just, want to clear up the fact that, we're right now, this short-term rental tax is just being used to balance the budget because there's, I think the last time that free cash was certified, there was about $860,000 in it, and that was FY 2019. So FY 20 and FY 21 have not been certified. 21 can't yet, it's not over, but FY 20 has not yet been certified. And I don't believe FY 19 was actually put into the budget for FY 20.
I did not see it used at the 2020 annual town meeting.
So there very well could be a substantial amount of money in free cash that, I don't want to mislead anyone, but it's likely that there's a substantial amount of money in free cash, but we just can't allocate it until it's certified.
Yeah, 23 months ago, there was $823,000 there. And I don't see where the town has spent any of it.
And we've gotten 2 years of, or at least up to 20, we would have a full year of receipts in there.
Yeah, and actually, by the time you get around to setting the tax rate in the fall, you will have the 2021 certification also.
Right.
So then I think we have our answer. We need to proceed with the protocol to get this money allotted to us in general.
Okay. Let's see. We all agreed on that? Yes,
Yes.
no? Okay. I propose that we, next meeting would be 2 weeks from today so that we can make recommendations on the ADU bylaw, on 95 Lawrence Road, wastewater bylaw, and anything else that's, we think we need to make a recommendation on, and whatever other business we have. So is that an okay meeting date for people?
17th
Yeah.
Yes.
for
Yeah.
me.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
Mike, do you have any limitations with regard to the tides?
Oh, I guess I should look.
Yeah.
If it's in the evening, I don't mind, because sunset is fairly 7:41. So yeah. Let's see.
Sunset is 8 o'clock by then.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm fine on that date.
Okay. We have one set of open session meeting minutes to review, and that would be the minutes from April 12th. I know the agenda says April 13th, but I'm prepared to overlook that. So does anybody have any additions, corrections, or would like to offer any amendments on the minutes of April 12th? Nope. Anybody want to offer a motion to accept them?
So moved.
And a second?
Second,
Elaine? Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Kathleen?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Elaine?
aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Sharon?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We have an executive session we have to do. Put that out of the way. So, checklist for executive session, topics on the agenda. We've convened an open session. The purpose for convening the executive session is to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. The board will adjourn from the executive session without reconvening an open session. And the chair states that having a discussion in open session would have a detrimental effect on the trust's negotiating position. So can we have a motion to adjourn the open session and reconvene in executive session?
So moved.
Okay, we got Kathleen. Is there a sec, was there a second?
Second.
Okay. Sharon. Roll call vote. Kathleen,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Elaine,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Sharon,
Aye.
chair votes aye, and Mr. Hood is absent. Okay, so I am going to stop the recording now.